Life is a series of choices, and some of the most important decisions we make revolve around the relationships we keep, the boundaries we set, and the love we allow into our lives. But what happens when those choices pull us away from our peace, our growth, or our sense of self? Have you ever found yourself tolerating what you shouldn't, holding on to what no longer serves you, or mistaking pain for love because it feels familiar? Today, we're diving into truths that many of us need to hear, but rarely speak aloud. We'll explore the subtle ways toxicity seeps into our lives, how fear of the unknown keeps us stuck, and why letting go is often the greatest act of self-love. This is about recognizing your worth, reclaiming your power, and understanding that the life you truly deserve starts with the standards you set. Are you ready to raise the bar, break free from what holds you back, and step into a life of peace, freedom, and genuine love? Let's start by rewriting the narrative and embracing the courage it takes to choose yourself. Toxic relationships don't always start with screaming and arguments. They often creep in quietly, masked as affection, care, or harmless habits. They may appear as sweet gestures that later become weapons of control, or comments veiled as humor that chip away at your confidence. These relationships often begin with subtle shifts: the slight disapproval of your choices, the need for constant validation, or an increasing reliance on their mood to define your own. Toxicity may show up as manipulation cloaked in concern, where questions about your whereabouts or decisions feel more like interrogations than care. You might notice patterns of blame, where you're always at fault regardless of the situation, or instances of gaslighting, where you're made to doubt your own experiences and emotions. Over time, these behaviors erode your sense of self, creating a cycle of dependency that feels impossible to escape. Even the silences can be toxic: cold, calculated withdrawals of affection meant to punish or control. Over-apologizing becomes second nature, as does the constant need to avoid conflict, walking on eggshells in fear of setting them off. You might find yourself excusing their behavior to others, or convincing yourself that it's not that bad. But deep down, you feel the weight of their negativity, draining your energy and peace. Recognizing the poison in a toxic relationship requires courage and self-awareness. It means acknowledging red flags even when it's painful, and trusting your instincts when something feels wrong. It involves understanding that love should build, not break, empower, not diminish. Recognize the patterns, name the behaviors, and take steps to reclaim your boundaries. It's not easy, but your peace, happiness, and self-worth are worth fighting for. Sometimes the hardest thing to accept is that not everyone deserves a seat at your table. The need to protect your peace often requires decisions that feel uncomfortable, but are deeply necessary. Not everyone who enters your life will align with your values, respect your boundaries, or contribute to your growth. Some relationships, no matter how familiar or deeply rooted, may only bring negativity, chaos, or unnecessary weight to your life. It's not about being ruthless or uncaring, but recognizing the impact others have on your emotional and mental well-being. You might find yourself giving too much while receiving little in return, or constantly compromising your needs to accommodate someone who rarely reciprocates. Over time, these imbalances can drain your energy, leaving you emotionally exhausted and disconnected from yourself. Walking away isn't an act of rejection. It's an act of self-preservation. It's understanding that your peace is not a luxury, but a necessity, a foundation upon which your happiness, clarity, and purpose rest. To value your peace means setting boundaries that may be difficult for others to accept. It's learning to say no without guilt, prioritizing your well-being even if it disrupts the status quo, and letting go of relationships that thrive on your discomfort or compliance. There's strength in choosing solitude over toxic company, in embracing the quiet of your own presence rather than enduring the noise of someone who doesn't honor your worth. As you protect your peace, you also open the door for healthier connections, relationships grounded in mutual respect, understanding, and support. To truly value your peace is to redefine what you tolerate and realign your life with the love and positivity you deserve. Every time you tolerate disrespect, You set the standard for how others can treat you. What you allow, what you excuse, and what you ignore communicate more than words ever could. These silent agreements shape the dynamics of your relationships, becoming the blueprint for how others navigate your boundaries or lack thereof. When you let a cutting remark slide, when you laugh off an insult masked as a joke, or when you shrink yourself to avoid confrontation, you're unintentionally sending a message. This behavior is acceptable. Over time, these small concessions accumulate, creating a pattern that others come to rely on. They learn that you'll stay silent, that you'll forgive without consequence, that your boundaries are negotiable. But you hold the power to rewrite that narrative. Setting boundaries isn't about being confrontational, it's about being clear. It's about showing others that your time, energy, and emotions are not to be taken for granted. By standing firm in your values and refusing to settle for less than respect, you not only protect your self-worth, but also teach others to rise to the occasion or step aside. Raising the bar is a practice, not a one-time declaration. It means recognizing your triggers, knowing your limits, and communicating them with confidence and consistency. It's catching those moments when someone crosses a line and addressing them directly, not to start conflict, but to reaffirm your standards. It's choosing to walk away from relationships that diminish your light rather than letting them dim your shine. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. Respect begins with self-respect. If you hold yourself with dignity, kindness, and grace, others will be more likely to mirror that energy. The standards you set are a reflection of your belief in your worth. And when you raise them, you challenge others to do better, not only for you, but also for themselves. Life is a series of choices, and some of the most important decisions we make revolve around the relationships we keep, the boundaries we set, and the love we allow into our lives. But what happens when those choices pull us away from our peace, our growth, or our sense of self? Have you ever found yourself tolerating what you shouldn't, holding on to what no longer serves you, or mistaking pain for love because it feels familiar? Today, we're diving into truths that many of us need to hear, but rarely speak aloud. We'll explore the subtle ways toxicity seeps into our lives, how fear of the unknown keeps us stuck, and why letting go is often the greatest act of self-love. This is about recognizing your worth, reclaiming your power, and understanding that the life you truly deserve starts with the standards you set. Are you ready to raise the bar, break free from what holds you back, and step into a life of peace, freedom, and genuine love? Let's start by rewriting the narrative and embracing the courage it takes to choose yourself. Love should never feel like walking on eggshells, enduring insults, or questioning your worth. It is not a battlefield where your spirit is worn down or your heart is constantly bruised. Love is meant to uplift, not suffocate, to nurture, not wound. Real love builds, it doesn't break. Pain disguised as love often arrives subtly. It may start as a slight criticism framed as helpful advice, or an expectation to change parts of yourself to be more acceptable. Over time, these moments can snowball into a cycle where affection is conditional, support feels transactional, and your sense of self begins to erode. This is not love, it's control, manipulation, or neglect masquerading as care. Love does not demand that you diminish yourself to make someone else shine. It doesn't require you to sacrifice your peace to maintain someone else's comfort or make endless compromises while receiving none in return. Pain is not a badge of honor or a test of your commitment. Love in its truest form thrives on mutual respect, understanding, and kindness. When love is real, it feels safe. It allows you to express yourself without fear of judgment or retaliation. It celebrates your growth, encourages your dreams, and stands beside you during struggles without making you feel like a burden. Real love values communication over control, trust over suspicion, and equality over power dynamics. If love brings more tears than smiles, more anxiety than peace, or more insecurity than confidence, it's time to reassess. Love is not perfect. It involves effort, patience, and sometimes discomfort, but it is never cruel. It does not punish, belittle, or demand that you prove your worth. Healing from the misconception that pain equals love requires unlearning and rebuilding. It involves looking within, recognizing patterns, and setting new standards for how you wish to be treated. Love begins with self-love, with understanding that you deserve compassion, respect, and joy. When you embrace this truth, you open the door to connections that enrich rather than deplete, that inspire rather than harm. Staying in a toxic relationship out of habit or fear of the unknown only keeps you shackled to a life that limits your potential. Familiarity can be a seductive trap. wrapping itself around you with the illusion of safety. But the comfort of what is known often hides the pain of stagnation and the slow erosion of your happiness. True freedom comes when you choose what's best for your soul, not what's easiest for your comfort zone. Familiarity breeds complacency, making it easy to ignore red flags or dismiss your own feelings in exchange for the predictability of routine. You might tell yourself, it's not that bad, or at least I know what to expect. But familiarity can keep you tethered to cycles of hurt, diminishing your self-worth and stifling your growth. It convinces you that the uncertainty of leaving is scarier than the pain of staying, even as it drains you emotionally, mentally, and sometimes even physically. Freedom requires courage. The courage to confront the discomfort of change and the unknown. It's the bravery to look beyond what's familiar and envision a life where your peace and joy take precedence. Freedom asks you to prioritize your well-being, even if it means walking away from people or situations you once thought were indispensable. Choosing freedom is not a rejection of the past, but an embrace of possibility. It's about recognizing that your worth is not tied to someone else's approval, nor is your future dictated by the patterns of your past. It's learning to trust yourself to navigate the uncertainty, knowing that the discomfort of change is temporary, but the rewards of liberation are lasting. The path to freedom often feels lonely at first. You might grieve the loss of what was familiar, even if it wasn't healthy. But with every step away from toxicity, you create space for healing, self-discovery, and the opportunity to attract relationships and experiences that align with your highest self. Freedom is the ultimate act of self-love. It's saying, I deserve more, and refusing to settle for less. It's breaking the chains of fear and stepping boldly into a future where you are no longer bound by what was, but are free to create what can be. As you choose freedom over familiarity, you reclaim your power, your peace, and your potential. Your journey to peace, love, and self-worth begins with the choices you make today. Recognize the poison before it takes root, value your peace over their presence, and teach others how to treat you by the boundaries you set. Growth often requires separation, and while it may feel painful, it clears the way for a better version of yourself to emerge. Remember, pain is not love. Real love nurtures, uplifts, and empowers. Choosing freedom over familiarity may seem daunting, but it is the ultimate declaration of self-respect and courage. You are not defined by the relationships that hurt you, the comfort zones that held you back, or the patterns you've outgrown. You have the strength to let go, the wisdom to heal, and the power to create a life filled with respect, joy, and fulfillment. The journey may not be easy, but it is always worth it. When you choose yourself, your peace, your growth, your freedom, you pave the way for a future where you are truly free to thrive.